This is Focus on Africa. I'm Lukwesa Birak. Our top stories. Ethiopia's northern Tigray region gets set for an election standoff in defiance of the Prime Minister. We'll explain why. Staying ahead of the curve, we find out how Senegal is top on the continent and second worldwide in its response to COVID-19. That's according to a recent survey. South Africa's economy shrinks by 51% in the second quarter, the heavy price of fighting the coronavirus. Also in the programme, Viva Stella. We meet the Italian designer who's taking a stand against racism and urging fashion brands to hire more black talent. Hello and welcome to Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Well, we start today's programme in Ethiopia, where in an unprecedented act of defiance against the federal government, Tigrayan officials are set to press ahead with regional elections tomorrow. Ethiopia's upper house said on Saturday that the plans by the northern Tigray region to hold their own parliamentary elections was unconstitutional, setting up a potential clash between the central government and the powerful Tigray People's Liberation Front, a ruling coalition of ethnically based parties. Now, national polls, which should have been held in August, were postponed because of the pandemic. And tomorrow's polls are being seen as a sign that Prime Minister Ahmed is struggling to retain his reputation as a peace broker about a year after he won the Nobel Peace Prize for ending a border war with Eritrea and, of course, for his efforts to democratize Ethiopia. At stake, well, an escalation of ethnic and regional tension, which could possibly lead to military confrontation and the breakup of Africa's second most populous nation. The BBC's Kalkidanya Patel has more from Addis.
There is nothing extraordinary about the day here in the capital, Addis Ababa. A 5-month state of emergency declared to combat the COVID-19 pandemic just ended, and people are getting back to their normal lives. But in the country's northernmost state of Tigray, the story is quite different. While the pandemic forces the delay of landmark elections on a national level, Tigray is on the eve of unprecedented regional polls defying the federal government. The elections are the latest front line on the ongoing frictions between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's administration and ruling elites of the Tigrayan People Liberation Front, the TPLF, a party that has been dominant since the 1990s until it was kicked out of the ruling coalition by the Prime Minister. Authorities in Addis Ababa say the elections are unconstitutional and illegal. But the political elites in Tigray that have opposed Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for the large part of the past 2.5 years that has been in power accuse him of power grab. A few days ahead of the poll, conflict seemed possible when Tigrayan leaders issued a statement warning the federal government that interfering in the election could be considered as a declaration of war. The upper house of parliament in Addis Ababa then declared the election null and void. Authorities in Addis Ababa often accuse political elites in Tigray of trying to lead the region as a de facto state. The polls, in which 5 parties are registered to take part and are boycotted by some of the main opposition groups in the region, are likely to increase the tension between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's administration and the government in Tigray. Kalkidan Ibeltal, BBC News, Addis Ababa.
OK, we're going to discuss this further. I'm joined now by Ahmed Soliman, who is a research fellow on the Horn of Africa with the Africa programme at Chatham House. Thank you for joining us here on Focus on Africa. First off, this all sounds very complicated.
Yes, it is. It's hugely complicated. I think what we're seeing really is the fruits of a very turbulent transition in Ethiopia, particularly since Abiy Ahmed has come into power in 2018. And a standoff between one of the key regions in the country, the Tigray region, and its regional government and the central government.
So what likelihood is there then that things are going to stay peaceful if this election goes ahead tomorrow?
I think the election will go ahead tomorrow. The regional leaders in Tigray and Debretsion Gebremichael, the leader there, has said so, and all indications are they've come out with information that over 2,500 polling stations are ready for the elections tomorrow, and over 2.5 million people are expected to cast their votes. But I think that forceful intervention does seem unlikely ahead of the elections. The Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, has ruled out sending in federal forces in to stop the election. And I think the result of the election, despite some opposition groups boycotting, is really isn't in question. The TPLF is likely to win the election, whether it's held now or it's held next year, along with the other regional elections. But that doesn't mean the election will be recognised or considered lawful by the federal government or the National Electoral Commission. So I do think there's going to be some form of federal intervention that takes place. That's inevitable after the election has happened. The government could call for elections to be re-held in Tigray along with the other regional elections. But I think that, would understandably be strongly resisted from the Tigray's leaders. And the best outcome really would be if this post-electoral intervention led to a proper dialogue between the Tigray regional leaders in the TPLF and the federal government, which is really yet to happen since Abiy Ahmed came into power.
Ahmed, the one thing I don't understand is why go ahead with these elections when you know there is going to be... Why do it now?
So what I think is you're seeing the combustible nature of Ethiopian politics. And as mentioned in your piece beforehand, for over 25 years, the TPLF really was the dominant partner in the ruling ethnic coalition in the country, in charge of its own federal region, which, it is. This was upended when Abiy Ahmed came into power in 2018, and there's been a deterioration of relations since. Abiy's government have accused the TPLF of trying to undermine efforts to open up and liberalise. The TPLF have accused the government of excessive targeting and demonising them and Tigrayan interests, removing political figures, security figures, and removing some of their economic interests as well. So this has really built up over the last couple of years, and the TPLF then left the ruling coalition when the Prime Minister transformed the former party into the now Prosperity Party in 2019. So you have a real breakdown in relations and no real significant attempts to bridge that gap, to mend relations, to constitute dialogue that might lead to an improvement. So I think, what we're seeing with Tigray pursuing its own regional elections really reflects on the breakdown and deterioration between the federal government and Tigray's government.
Ahmed Soliman, thank you very much for that very helpful insight. Thank you. Speaking to us from London, of course. Now, South Africa's economy has shrunk by a staggering 51%, and that's in the second quarter of 2020. From March, the continent's most industrialised economy implemented one of the strictest lockdowns in the world as it battled COVID-19, but it has paid a heavy price. The BBC's Vumani Nkezi has the details.
South Africa's economy contracted by a massive 51% in the second quarter of 2020 compared to the previous year. In March, the country implemented one of the strictest lockdowns in the world as it battled the biggest COVID-19 outbreak in Africa. However, that's taken a significant toll on the economy. A contraction was expected, but these numbers are staggering and are 10% higher than what the central bank predicted. With the exception of agriculture, all sectors of the economy saw big declines, with industries such as aviation, tourism and hospitality coming to a virtual standstill. The controversial ban on alcohol and cigarette sales saw consumer spending on these items fall by a massive 92%. However, untaxed black market sales continued to thrive during lockdown. South Africa is paying a heavy price for its early and aggressive lockdown. The strategy is credited for controlling the spread of COVID-19. However, the timing of the pandemic came as the country was already in recession and suffering record unemployment. The current jobless rate is over 30%, and many economists are predicting the figure to rise to an unprecedented 50%. The contraction means that for the first time since 1993, before democracy, South Africa's economy has seen 4 consecutive quarters of decline, further exacerbating the economic malaise. Vumani Mkize, BBC News, Johannesburg.
You're watching Focus on Africa. Let's take a quick look at the stories making headlines across Africa. And the president of Ghana has been elected as the new chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS. Now, the appointment was made during the 57th summit of the regional group. President Nana Akufo-Addo will take over from the current ECOWAS chair, the president of Niger. Now, Mr. Akufo-Addo also faces a re-election battle in December, when Ghanaians go to the polls to elect their next president. Rising Nile floodwaters are threatening to swamp an ancient archaeological site in Sudan after some of the heaviest rainfall and highest ever recorded river levels. Teams have built sandbag walls and are currently pumping out water to prevent damage to the ruins of Al-Bajrawiya, which is a former royal city dating back 2 millennia. You're watching Focus on Africa, coming to you from BBC World News. Stay with us because still to come, we meet the Italian designer who's taking a stand against racism and urging fashion brands to hire more black talent. It's out there. Now, when it comes to the handbook on how to fight the coronavirus, New Zealand has its name on the cover. In fact, it's been said that many countries worked from the back to the front in their wrong or incorrect response in implementing effective measures. Well, according to a recent report published by the Foreign Policy magazine, Senegal in West Africa came second worldwide out of 36 countries. Now, they've created a COVID-19 Global Response Index. So there, at the top is New Zealand, followed by Senegal, with around 1,400 cases and 284 deaths. Now, South Africa, with the continent's highest number of cases, comes in 8th. And to put it into context, lying in 31st position is the United States. So, how did they do it? Well, Senegal's strategy has been described as aggressive and included a 24-hour turnaround on tests, designated quarantine centres, and all of this with a fragile healthcare system and 7 doctors for every 100,000 people. Let's find out how they did it. We're going to speak to one of those involved in the effort, Director of Senegal's Health Emergency Operations Centre, Dr. Abdoulaye Bousso. Thank you very much for joining us here on Focus on Africa. So, first off, this report looked at things such as public health directives, financial responses and public communications. So let's go with the first one, your public health directive. How did you do this? What was your primary concern?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your invitation. Okay, when we start this outbreak in Senegal, we took lesson from the Ebola outbreak and we start to focus on the treatment center because we had just one reference treatment center in Dakar, and we thought that we need to have treatment center in all 14 regions of Senegal, and also to be able to do the test quickly and having rapidly the test. And it's why we decide to decentralize the test. Now we have for the 14 region, 10 have the capacity to do the test, and also we reinforce the capacity of the health workers to train them and to be able to take care of patients in the different regions of the country.
Okay, the second factor that was measured was financial responses. Now, the country is not in the best economic situation, so how has this been afforded?
Yes, I think the first thing was the high commitment of the head of state. And what I can say now, the Minister of Health, the government of Senegal, put around $78 million for the response is coming from the budget of the government. And it's something very important to help us to start very quickly the response and not to wait the support from the other country or foreign country. And it's something very important, the commitment of the high level of the government to put local fund first, and after we have the support of international organization and other countries. And it's something very, very important to be first in putting our finance, our resources.
Okay. The other factor that was monitored was public communication. So how did you get the message out there?
Yes, we all, every day we have a press conference and we share all information we have every day. We give the number of tests did, the number of dead person, the number of positive cases, and it's something for us very important to keep the mobilization of people to understand that the disease is in Senegal, and we decide to be really clear, really open on all information. And since the 2nd of March to this morning, we have this press conference. And for us, it's very important, the communication, to keep people mobilized and to share the good information.
Okay, very quick and final question. Obviously, the question now is it sustainable? How have the Senegalese reacted to this, and are they happy for it to continue?
Yes, now when we see the last four weeks, the number of cases is going down, and the virus reproduction rate is going down also. Now is near to 1, and it's very important. 1 positive cases can infect 1 person. And we are going to keep the mobilization, because now we are going in some sensitive situation. We have some religious mass gathering coming. We have the opening of the university, of school, and we continue to mobilize people. We continue to keep all our effort and try to maintain this outbreak and to contain it.
Dr. Abdalouye Bousso, thank you very much for showing your country's experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, a misreckoning of a colonial past, representation, diversity, or rather lack of, all phrases we've heard a lot of these last few months. And whilst Italian fashion is synonymous with high style, it seems it too has a race problem in-house. Migration in recent years has created a more diverse Italy, and yet there is only one black Italian designer who enjoys any notable recognition. Her name is Stella Jean, and she's now launched a campaign asking, do Black Lives Matter in fashion? And she's urging top brands to hire more black people. Well, the BBC's Sofia Bettiza reports now from Rome.
The changing face of Italian fashion. This is the woman behind it. Stella Jean mixes Italian, African and Caribbean styles. Her designs have been worn by celebrities like Beyoncé and Rihanna. She's launched a campaign that exposes the stereotypes and racist comments that black Italian women face every day.
Ma sei nera, non puoi essere italiana.
Voi avete tutto il ritmo nel sangue, no?
Ma voi vi lavate i capelli?
È stata un'esperienza estremamente provante. Vengono rivolti frasi abbastanza insultanti.
Italian fashion has faced criticism for racist imagery. Take this jumper from Gucci or these accessories from Prada.
In Italia c'è un problema di razzismo nel mondo della moda?
Basta pensare che io sono l'unico membro della Camera su 113 nero. La mia unicità non è verosimile.
It's the Fashion Council in Italy, along with those in the UK, America and France, that dictates what happens in fashion around the world. Out of protest, Stella cancelled her show at Milan Fashion Week, but asked if she could promote her anti-racism campaign there instead.
Ed è questo quello che ho chiesto, appoggio. Da quel momento non ho più ricevuto comunicazioni né tantomeno l'invito alla Fashion Week.
But she says that those same fashion brands who had blanked her later rushed to show support for Black Lives Matter on social media.
Un certo sconcerto e un certo sconforto.
Italy's Fashion Council says a lot of its brands are trying hard to be more inclusive, but that the government has to drive positive change. Because of migration in the past few years, Italian society is changing very quickly, but that's not reflected on catwalks, in magazines and in fashion stores. The misconception that to be Italian is to be white still exists.
Racism in Italy is blatant. The problem is that after fascism, Italy didn't reckon with the colonial past and didn't reckon properly with the massive and rooted heritage that fascism left to this country.
Stella is now urging all Italian fashion houses to hire more black people. And with the prominence of the Black Lives Matter campaign, she feels they will finally have to listen. Sofia Bettiza, BBC News, Rome.
Now, I wonder if you've noticed that we've started to see mask litter lying around our streets. It's horrible. I mean, it's a health hazard. Well, in Kenya, an entrepreneur called Catherine Wanjoya has come up with a solution. She said she had to because she realised that people were recycling and then selling those disposable one-use masks. Take a look at what she did.
When we dispose our used masks and other PPEs in a way which is not responsible, they end up being handled by other people, which means they could get infected, go infect their families, and the spread still continues. We saw a problem we needed to solve. One evening, I just saw some news that somebody had collected some used masks, washed them, and was even selling them. So all of a sudden I was like, we can use our incinerators to burn those used masks. We pivoted at 2 different sizes. For the small incinerator, you can do up to 80 masks per day because you do like 20 at one go. And then for the bigger incinerator, you'll be able to do the other PPEs up to 20 kilos per one go. And that way, if we do it at source, they will not even get to the person, to such people who would use them and resell them to people who are not even suspecting. In Kenya, we don't separate waste. Whether it's domestic waste or any other waste, we just put everything together. Then the bin is collected, and then there are those people now who go and take that waste into an open dump site. And there are others who come to look for items which could be of value to go and sell. So especially at this time when we see the numbers are really growing, it's very important to go a long way into thinking of the safe disposal of these PPEs. When it comes to things like this mask we're just throwing, we're able to take care of this boy or this girl who is scavenging through the waste to try and get something valuable to go and sell, just to put food on the table for their family. So for me, it's all about impact, making sure that we make a difference in somebody's life.
Ingenious, isn't it? Well, that's it for today. We've got plenty more coming up tomorrow. In the meantime, don't forget there's lots on the website, bbcnews.com. If you want to get in touch, I'm Luquessa Burek, at Luquessa Burek, of course. From all of us, cheerio.